Like, subscribe, and turn on notification for more amazing video. Respect!
He helped a lost alien girl find her mother. Now his life will never be the same. The rain hammered against the protective glass of Jack Harker's hovering quad bike, creating blurry streaks that distorted his view of Nexus Prime's grimy streets. The massive alien metropolis looked even more depressing in the downpour, its towering structures looming like silent sentinels in the gloom. Jack adjusted the controls, his muscular forearms flexing as he navigated through one of the abandoned outer city roads. "Goddamn weather system," he muttered, wiping condensation from the inside of the windshield. Earth's colonies had better climate control than this hellhole, but the pay for security contractors on Nexus Prime was triple what he'd make back home. The quad bike's engines hummed beneath him as he maneuvered around a pile of discarded alien tech. His attention was so focused on avoiding the debris that he almost missed the small figure standing alone in the downpour. Jack slowed the vehicle, squinting through the rain. An alien child stood shivering on the roadside, attempting to shield herself with what looked like a thin plastic bag. Her delicate blue skin was soaked, and her large sapphire eyes stared fearfully at his approaching vehicle. Light-colored hair clung to her face, and her simple pink dress was completely drenched. "Shit," Jack whispered, something in his chest tightening at the sight. He'd seen plenty of hard things during his 12 years in the Terran Defense Force and 5 as a private contractor, but a kid alone in this neighborhood, that was trouble waiting to happen. Nexus Prime's outer districts were notorious for trafficking operations that targeted vulnerable species. Without hesitation, Jack circled back and pulled up beside her. The quad bike's cabin hissed open and he leaned out. "Are you lost, little one?" he asked, softening his usually stern voice. The alien girl looked up at him timidly, her sapphire eyes wide with a mixture of hope and fear. "I can't find my mommy," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the pounding rain. Jack glanced around. No other adults in sight, just abandoned buildings in the distant glow of the city center. "Come on, get in before you catch something," he said, extending his hand. "I'll help you find her." The girl hesitated, clutching her useless plastic shield tighter. "It's okay," Jack assured her. "I'm not going to hurt you." "What's your name?" "Livy," she said softly. "I'm Jack. Jack Harker." "I'm going to help you, Livy, but you need to get out of this rain first." After another moment's hesitation, she took his hand. Her small blue fingers were ice cold against his warm skin. Jack helped her into the passenger seat and closed the cabin, immediately turning up the heat. "Thank you, Mr. Jack," Livy said, her teeth chattering. Jack grabbed an emergency thermal blanket from under his seat and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Just Jack is fine. Now, where did you last see your mother?" "At the market," Livy said, pulling the blanket tighter. "The big one near the Silver Towers. We were looking at pretty fabrics, and I saw a glowing butterfly. I followed it, but when I turned around, Mommy was gone." Her lower lip trembled. "I tried to find my way back, but everything looks different in the rain." Jack nodded, punching coordinates into the navigation system. "The Central Market District. That's about 20 minutes from here. We'll find her, don't worry." As the quad bike lifted higher and accelerated toward the city center, Jack kept glancing at his small passenger. She was starting to warm up, her blue skin regaining some of its vibrancy. Her large eyes darted around the cabin, taking in the various controls and screens. "You have a lot of buttons," she observed. Jack smiled slightly. "This is a modified T-Dusef patrol vehicle. I use it for my work." "Are you a soldier?" Livy asked, her head tilting curiously. "Used to be. Now I'm what you might call a problem solver." "Like a hero?" Her eyes widened with childlike wonder. Jack chuckled. "Not exactly. Just a guy doing a job." He paused, considering her. "What about you?" "You're not from Nexus Prime, are you?" Livy shook her head. "We're from Elysium. Mommy is a fabric designer. We came here for the trade festival." She looked down at her soaked dress. "This is one of her designs." "It's very pretty," Jack said, though fashion was about the last thing he knew anything about. As they approached the market district, the streets became more crowded with beings of various species hurrying through the rain. The silver towers Livy had mentioned came into view. Massive structures that house the planet's most exclusive shopping areas. "Do you remember exactly where in the market you were?" Jack asked. Livy's face scrunched up in concentration. "There were blue lights and a fountain with dancing water." "The Azure Pavilion," Jack nodded. "I know it." He guided the quad bike toward a landing pad near the market entrance. As they touched down, Jack noticed Livy's nervous expression. "Hey," he said gently, "we'll find your mom. I promise." Livy nodded, but her small hands clutched the blanket tightly. "What if she already left to look for me?" "Then we'll keep looking until we find her," Jack said firmly. "I won't leave you alone again." Little did Jack know that this chance encounter in the rain would change the course of his life forever. The Azure Pavilion bustled with activity despite the downpour outside. The market's climate shields kept the interior dry, while holographic blue lights danced across the ceiling, mimicking clear skies. Jack guided Livy through the crowd, his hand protectively on her shoulder as they navigated the maze of vendor stalls. "Do you see anything familiar?" Jack asked, scanning the area with practiced vigilance. Livy pointed toward a fountain where water jets performed an intricate dance. "We were over there by the sparkly fabrics." As they approached the textiles section, Jack noticed two Dravian males, tall, gaunt figures with ashen skin, watching them with unusual interest. Their eyes tracked Livy's movements with predatory focus. "Stay close," Jack murmured, positioning himself between Livy and the Dravians. His hand instinctively moved toward the concealed blaster at his hip. "Livy!" Exclamation mark. The desperate cry cut through the market noise. A slender, blue-skinned woman with flowing silver hair pushed through the crowd, her elegant turquoise dress swirling around her. "Mommy!" Livy broke free from Jack's grip and ran toward her mother, who dropped to her knees and embraced her daughter. "Thank the celestial stars." The woman's voice trembled as she held Livy tight. "I've been searching everywhere." Jack approached slowly, giving them space for their reunion. The woman looked up, her luminous eyes the same sapphire shade as Livy's, meeting his. Something electric passed between them, a connection that made Jack momentarily forget the crowded marketplace. "You found her," she said, rising gracefully. "I cannot express my gratitude." "Jack helped me, Mommy," Livy explained. "His flying machine has lots of buttons." The woman extended her hand. "I'm Evira. You have my eternal thanks for protecting my daughter." Jack took her hand, surprised by the warmth that spread up his arm at the contact. "Jack Harker, I'm glad I could help." Evira's fingers lingered in his a moment longer than necessary. "Please, I must repay your kindness. Would you join us for dinner?" Before Jack could respond, he noticed the Dravians moving closer, speaking into communication devices. His instincts flared. "I'd be honored," he said, keeping his voice casual while positioning himself to watch the suspicious figures. "But first, I think we should move somewhere else." "Now." Evira caught his tone and glanced around. "Is something wrong?" "Possibly. Those two have been watching Livy since we arrived." Evira's expression hardened. "The Dravians. They've been following us since we landed on Nexus Prime." "You know them?" "Not personally, but their kind have been known to target Elysians, especially children. Our genetic makeup is valuable to certain parties." Jack nodded grimly. "Let's move toward the exit. Stay between me and the wall." As they made their way through the market, a piercing alarm suddenly blared throughout the pavilion. Red emergency lights replaced the serene blue glow. "Attention all patron," boomed an automated voice. "A security threat has been detected. Please proceed to designated evacuation points." This is not a drill. Panic erupted as shoppers rushed toward the exits. Jack pulled Evira and Livy closer, shielding them from the surging crowd. "This way," he directed, guiding them toward a service corridor he'd noted earlier, an old habit from his military days. They slipped through the door just as the main exits became bottlenecked with frightened shoppers. The service corridor was dimly lit and mercifully empty. "How did you know about this?" Evira asked, her voice hushed. "Former Terran Defense Force," Jack explained. "Old habits die hard." Evira studied him with new appreciation. You humans and your survival instincts. Remarkable. They reached an exit that opened onto a rain-slicked alley. Jack's quad bike was parked several blocks away, but the evacuation chaos made the direct route impossible. We need to find shelter until this dies down, Jack said, checking the alley in both directions. My accommodations are nearby, Vera offered. The Celestial Gardens District. Jack raised an eyebrow. Upscale place? The trade festival sponsors arranged it, she explained. It's secure and has private access. As they hurried through back alleys toward the residential district, the rain eased to a gentle mist. Livy kept pace between them, her small hand clutching her mother's. You mentioned the Dravians have been following you, Jack said quietly. Why? Avira glanced down at Livy, then back to Jack. It's complicated. Perhaps we can discuss it later. The implication was clear, not in front of the child. They reached the Celestial Gardens, a towering structure of gleaming white stone and living plants that spiraled up its exterior. Avira led them to a private elevator that scanned her palm before ascending. Her suite occupied half of the 87th floor, with panoramic views of Nexus Prime's skyline. The rain clouds were breaking, allowing the twin moons to cast silver light across the city. Levy, why don't you take a warm bath? Avira suggested. I've laid out your favorite pajamas. Once Livy disappeared into the bathroom, Avira turned to Jack, her composure faltering. Thank you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. If you hadn't found her… But I did, Jack assured her, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. Avira's eyes held his, and that electric connection surged between them again. She placed a hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat through the fabric of his shirt. Humans are so warm, she murmured. Your heart beats so strongly. Jack found himself captivated by her delicate features, the subtle iridescence of her blue skin in the moonlight. Avira. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken attraction. Jack hadn't felt this immediate connection with anyone in years, maybe ever. There was something about her that called to him on a primal level, transcending their different species. The bathroom door clicked, breaking the spell. Avira stepped back just as Livy emerged in fluffy pajamas, her hair damp from the bath. I'm hungry, Mommy, she announced. Avira smiled, a slight flush darkening her blue cheeks. Then let's prepare dinner for our hero, shall we? Dinner was a surprisingly domestic affair. Avira prepared a meal of luminescent seafood and aromatic herbs that filled the apartment with enticing scents. Jack found himself captivated by her graceful movements as she worked, the subtle shimmer of her skin in the apartment's soft lighting. Livy chattered excitedly throughout the meal, recounting her adventure with animated gestures. And then Jack's flying machine went whoosh over the buildings. It was so fast. It sounds like quite the adventure, Avira smiled, her eyes meeting Jack's across the table. Though perhaps one we shouldn't repeat. After dinner, Livy's eyelids began to droop. The day's excitement had clearly taken its toll. Time for bed, little star, Avira said, guiding her daughter toward a bedroom off the main living area. Say good night to Jack. Good night, Jack, Livy mumbled sleepily. Will you still be here tomorrow? The question caught Jack off guard. Of course he will, Avira answered smoothly. Jack is keeping us safe, remember? Once Livy was tucked in, Avira returned with 2 glasses of iridescent blue liquid. Elysian moon wine, she explained, handing one to Jack. It's quite mild for humans, but the flavor is unique. Jack accepted the glass, their fingers brushing. The electric connection he'd felt earlier surged again, stronger this time. He took a sip, surprised by the pleasant warmth that spread through his chest. So, he said, settling onto the plush couch beside her, are you going to tell me why those Dravians are after your daughter? Avira's expression grew serious. She set down her glass and moved to the apartment's control panel, activating a privacy shield. The windows dimmed, and a subtle hum indicated sonic dampeners had engaged. Elysians possess a unique genetic adaptability, she began, returning to sit closer to Jack than before. Our DNA can integrate with other species, adopting beneficial traits while maintaining our core structure. That sounds valuable, Jack observed. More than you know. For centuries, we kept this ability secret, living quietly on our homeworld. But when we joined the Galactic Concord 50 years ago, certain corporations discovered our potential. Her voice hardened. They see us as resources, not people. And Livy? Avira's eyes glistened with unshed tears. My daughter possesses a rare genetic variation. Her adaptability is exponentially more powerful than most Elysians. The Nexus Biotech conglomerate wants to study her, harvest her genetic material to create adaptable bioweapons. That's why you're here? For the trade festival? A cover story, we're actually seeking asylum with the Terran Protectorate. Your people have laws against genetic exploitation that could protect us. Jack leaned forward. The Dravians, they work for this conglomerate? Mercenaries, hired to acquire us. Avira's hand found his, her touch sending warmth up his arm. I didn't expect to find help on Nexus Prime, especially not from a human. What's that supposed to mean? Jack asked, his thumb unconsciously tracing circles on her palm. A smile played at her lips. Humans have a reputation for being unpredictable. Some species find that threatening, but I've always found it fascinating. Fascinating, huh? Jack moved closer, drawn by something he couldn't explain. Your species adapts without changing your genetic code. You overcome obstacles through sheer determination and ingenuity. It's admirable. The air between them seemed to thicken. Jack was acutely aware of her proximity, the subtle floral scent of her skin, the way her silver hair caught the light. I should contact some old military connections, he said, his voice rougher than intended. They could help with your asylum request. Tomorrow, Avira whispered, her fingers trailing up his arm. Tonight, I'd rather not think about Dravians or conglomerates. Jack's heart hammered in his chest. Huh, what would you rather think about? I'd rather not think at all. Her eyes held his, filled with an intensity that took his breath away. On Elysium, when someone saves a life, there is a tradition of connection, a sharing of life energy. Connection, Jack repeated, his mouth suddenly dry. Our bodies contain energy fields that can harmonize, she explained, her fingers now tracing the contour of his jaw. Humans have particularly strong fields. I felt it the moment we touched. Jack swallowed hard. Is that why I feel like I've been hit by a stunner every time we make contact? Avira laughed softly, to sound like music. Your metaphor is apt. The question is, would you be willing to explore this connection further? The invitation in her eyes was unmistakable. Jack had been with non-humans before. Interspecies relationships weren't uncommon in the galaxy. But he'd never felt this immediate, powerful attraction. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought about it since the moment I saw you, he admitted. Her smile widened. Humans. So refreshingly direct. Jack leaned forward, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. Is that a yes? In answer, Avira closed the distance between them. Her lips were softer than he expected. Warmer. The contact sent a surge of sensation through his body, unlike anything he'd experienced before. Like electricity, but pleasant. Energizing rather than shocking. When they parted, Jack was breathing hard. That was, just the beginning, Avira whispered, taking his hand and leading him toward her bedroom. If you're willing. Jack followed, captivated by this woman who had entered his life through a chance encounter in the rain. Whatever came tomorrow, Dravians, conglomerates, asylum requests, tonight belonged to them. The door closed silently behind them, and in the darkness of her room, illuminated only by the city lights filtering through the privacy-dimmed windows, Jack discovered that some connections transcended species, language, and even the stars themselves. Jack woke to unfamiliar warmth against his chest. Opening his eyes, he found Avira nestled against him, her silver hair splayed across his shoulder, her blue skin almost luminescent in the early morning light filtering through the window. The events of the previous night flooded back. Their connection had been unlike anything he'd experienced before, a merging of sensations that transcended the physical. He gently traced the curve of her shoulder, marveling at how right this felt despite their differences. Avira stirred, her eyes fluttering open to meet his. Good morning, she murmured, a smile playing at her lips. Morning, Jack replied, his voice rough with sleep. That was incredible. Evira's fingers traced patterns on his chest. The energy exchange between our species is remarkably compatible. I've never experienced such intensity. Is that what we're calling it? Jack chuckled. Energy exchange? Would you prefer a more human term? Her eyes sparkled with mischief. Cosmic connection? Interstellar intimacy? Jack laughed, pulling her closer. I think I like energy exchange. Makes it sound scientific. Oh, I assure you, there was nothing clinical about what happened, Evira whispered, her lips brushing his ear. The moment was interrupted by a soft beep from Jack's wrist communicator. He frowned, checking the display. What is it? Evira asked, sensing his shift in mood. Security alert from my quad bike. Someone's trying to access its systems. Jack sat up, suddenly all business. Computer, activate apartment security scan. The apartment's AI responded immediately. Scanning. Alert. 6 unregistered biosignatures detected in the building. 4 approaching this floor. 2 in the lobby. Dravians, Evira breathed, fear replacing the warmth in her eyes. Jack was already moving, pulling on his clothes. Get Livy! We need to move. As Evira hurried to wake her daughter, Jack activated his communicator's emergency protocol, a measure he hadn't used since leaving the Terran Defense Force. Authorization. Harker Jack. TDF ID 47291. Emergency evac request. The communicator pulsed twice before a familiar voice responded. Harker, this is Commander Curtis. It's been a while. No time for reunions, sir. I've got hostiles closing in on my position. Dravian mercenaries, likely working for Nexus Biotech. A pause. Your location? Celestial Gardens, Nexus Prime, apartment 8701. Hold position. Extraction team en route. ETA 8 minutes. Jack grabbed his blaster from its holster. May not have 8 minutes, sir. Then buy yourself some time, soldier. And Harker, good to hear your voice. The communication ended as Evira emerged with a sleepy-eyed Livy in her arms. Jack, Evira questioned, reading the tension in his stance. We've got company coming up, but help is on the way. We need to hold out for 8 minutes. He moved to the apartment's security panel. Does this place have any defensive capabilities? Evira nodded. Basic shields and a panic room, through there. She pointed to what appeared to be a decorative wall panel. Perfect. Get in there with Livy. What about you? Evira's eyes widened. I'll buy us time. Jack checked his blaster's charge. Go. Now. No, Evira said firmly. We stay together. Before Jack could argue, his communicator chimed again. Harker, Curtis here. Be advised, we've been monitoring Nexus Biotech for months. Your Elysian friends are of particular interest to us. Jack frowned. Sir? The conglomerate has been developing illegal bioweapons using Elysian genetic material. We need evidence to shut them down. Your friends could help us get it. With all due respect, sir, they need protection, not recruitment. It's both, Harker. Get them to the extraction point, and I'll explain everything. Sending coordinates now. The communicator displayed a map showing a landing pad 3 blocks away. Change of plans, Jack told Evira. We're not waiting for them to come to us. A loud thump against the apartment door emphasized his point. The Dravians had arrived. The service elevator, Vera suggested. It connects to the maintenance tunnels. Jack nodded. Lead the way. As they moved toward the back of the apartment, the main door exploded inward. Jack pushed Evira and Livy behind him, raising his blaster. 2 Dravians entered, their gray skin almost metallic under the apartment lights. They carried pulse rifles and wore the distinctive armor of professional mercenaries. Hand over the Elysians, human, the taller one demanded. This doesn't concern you. Funny thing about humans, Jack replied, his aim steady. We tend to make everything our concern. He fired twice in rapid succession. The first shot hit the lead Dravian's weapon, causing it to explode in a shower of sparks. The second caught the other mercenary in the shoulder, spinning him backward. Go! Jack shouted to Evira, who was already punching in the access code for the service elevator. The doors slid open, and they rushed inside. As the elevator began its descent, Jack could hear the remaining Dravians shouting orders. Are you all right? Avira asked, her eyes scanning him for injuries. Fine. You? She nodded, holding Livy close. The child's eyes were wide but remarkably calm. You were very brave, Livy said solemnly to Jack, like the warriors in my storybooks. Despite the situation, Jack smiled. Just doing my job, kiddo. The elevator reached the maintenance level, opening onto a dimly lit tunnel. Jack checked his communicator. Extraction point is this way. Stay close. As they moved through the tunnel, Avira spoke quietly. Your commander, he knew about us. Apparently, the Terran Protectorate has been watching Nexus Biotech for a while. They need evidence of illegal bioweapons development. And we're the evidence, Avira concluded. Jack took her hand. No one's using you or Levy as bait, I promise. The intensity in his voice surprised even him. In less than a day, these two had become more important to him than he could have imagined. The connection he felt with Avira went beyond their physical intimacy. It was as if something fundamental had shifted in his universe. They reached the end of the tunnel, emerging onto a rain-slicked street. The extraction point was visible 2 blocks ahead, a small landing pad currently empty but illuminated despite the early hour. Almost there, Jack encouraged, checking for pursuers. As they approached the landing pad, a sleek black shuttle descended from the clouds, bearing the insignia of Terran Special Operations. Right on time, Jack muttered, relief washing over him. The shuttle touched down, its ramp extending. Commander Curtis himself stood at the entrance, his weathered face breaking into a rare smile at the sight of Jack. Harker, he called. Still finding trouble, I see. Trouble finds me, sir, Jack replied, ushering Avira and Levy toward the ramp. As they reached the shuttle, the sound of approaching vehicles made them turn. 3 hover cars bearing the Nexus Biotech logo rounded the corner, Dravian mercenaries leaning out with weapons ready. Inside now, Curtis ordered, drawing his sidearm. Jack pushed Avira and Livy up the ramp, then turned to face the approaching threat alongside his former commander. The morning sun broke through the clouds, glinting off their weapons as human and Dravian prepared to clash over the fate of an alien mother and child who had unexpectedly changed one man's life forever. The shuttle doors sealed with a pneumatic hiss as Commander Curtis and Jack laid down covering fire. Dravian energy bolts splashed against the craft's shields, creating ripples of blue light across its surface. Get us airborne, Curtis shouted to the pilot. The shuttle lurched upward, banking sharply to avoid the incoming fire. Jack steadied himself against a bulkhead, his eyes finding Avira and Levy strapped into seats across the compartment. Libby clutched a stuffed toy that one of the crew had given her, while Avira's gaze remained fixed on Jack. Everyone all right? He asked, moving to sit beside them once the shuttle stabilized. Avira nodded, her hand finding his. Thanks to you. Commander Curtis approached, his weathered face serious beneath close-cropped gray hair. He was older than Jack remembered, more lines around his eyes, more silver in his beard, but his posture remained ramrod straight, a testament to decades of military discipline. Harker, he nodded, still making dramatic exits, I see. Learn from the best, sir. A ghost of a smile crossed Curtis' face before he turned his attention to Avira. Ma'am, I'm Commander Thomas Curtis, Terran Special Operations. Your situation has come to our attention through our monitoring of Nexus Biotech's activities. You've been watching them? Avira asked. For nearly 2 years. They've been acquiring Elysian genetic material through various means, some legal, most not. Curtis's expression darkened. We believe they're developing bioweapons that could target specific genetic markers across multiple species. And you need our help to stop them, Avira concluded. We need evidence, hard proof of their illegal activities that will stand up in a galactic conquer tribunal. Curtis glanced at Levy, who was watching him with curious eyes. Perhaps we should discuss details in private. Jack nodded. Levy, how about we find you something to eat? These military types always have the best snacks. A young female officer approached. I can show her the galley, sir. After a reassuring nod from Avira, Levy went with the officer, chatting animatedly about the shuttle's controls. Once she was out of earshot, Curtis continued. We've identified Nexus Biotech's primary research facility on the outskirts of the city. Their security is impenetrable, except for one vulnerability. Their genetic scanners are calibrated to admit anyone with authorized Elysian DNA patterns. You want to use Evira as a key, Jack said, his voice hardening. Not exactly. Curtis activated a holographic display showing a complex molecular structure. We've developed a synthetic marker that mimics Elysian genetic patterns. With a sample from Miss Evira, we can refine it to match her specific signature. And then what? Evira asked. A small team infiltrates the facility using the synthetic marker, accesses their central database, and extracts evidence of their illegal operations. With that evidence, the Terran Protectorate can shut them down permanently and secure asylum for all Elysians under threat. Jack studied the facility schematics rotating in the hologram. High risk. High reward, Curtis countered. This isn't just about two Elysians, Harker. It's about stopping a corporation that's weaponizing genetic material. The implications are galaxy-wide. Evira's grip on Jack's hand tightened. I'll do it. If it means Livy and other Elysians will be safe, I'll provide whatever samples you need. You don't have to, Jack began. Yes, I do, she interrupted. This is bigger than us, huh? Curtis nodded approvingly. The mission launches tonight. We'll need volunteers for the infiltration team. I'm in, Jack said without hesitation. Figured as much, Curtis sighed. Always were too eager to jump into the fire, Harker. As Curtis moved away to brief his team, Jack turned to Evira. You sure about this? No, she admitted, her voice low. But what choice do we have? If we run, they'll keep hunting us. If we hide, they'll find others like Livy. Her eyes met his, fierce with determination. Sometimes you have to fight. Jack brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. That's very human of you. A smile touched her lips. Perhaps your species is rubbing off on me. Is that what we're calling it now? Jack teased, recalling their earlier conversation. Her blue skin darkened slightly. A blush, he realized. The energy exchange between us. It's more significant than I initially explained. How so? Elysian intimacy creates bonds, connections that linger. My people can sense emotions, share strength. She hesitated. It's why I feel so drawn to you, even though we've only just met. The connection is accelerated. Jack considered this. The intensity of his feelings for Evira had surprised him. It wasn't just physical attraction, but something deeper, as if he'd known her for years rather than hours. Does it bother you? She asked, uncertainty in her voice. Knowing that our connection isn't entirely natural? Nothing about meeting you has been ordinary, Jack replied, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Finding a lost girl in the rain, battling mercenaries, planning heists against evil corporations. It's been a hell of a day. A genetic bond seems almost mundane by comparison. Her laughter was like music. You humans have such a unique perspective. It's part of our charm. He leaned closer. And for the record, I don't care why I feel this way about you. I just know that I do. The shuttle banked, sunlight streaming through the viewport to illuminate her face. In that moment, Jack knew with absolute certainty that his life had irrevocably changed the instant he'd spotted a small blue figure standing in the rain. Curtis returned, interrupting their moment. We're approaching the safe house. Dr. Keller will need your genetic sample immediately, Miss Evira. We don't have much time to synthesize the marker before tonight's operation. As they prepared to land, Jack felt a tug of apprehension. The mission was dangerous, possibly suicidal, but the alternative was unthinkable. A lifetime of running for Evira and Livy, and countless other Elysians exploited for their genetic gifts. The shuttle descended toward a nondescript building on the outskirts of Nexus Prime's industrial sector. From the outside, it appeared abandoned, but Jack knew better. Terran Special Operations excelled at hiding in plain sight. Ready? He asked Evira as the landing gear engaged. She nodded, her sapphire eyes reflecting the determination he felt. Together. The word carried weight beyond its simple meaning. Whatever came next, they would face it as one. A human and an Elysian, bound by circumstance, choice, and something deeper that neither fully understood, but both embraced. The ramp lowered, revealing their temporary sanctuary and the beginning of the most dangerous phase of their journey. The safe house hummed with activity as Terran operatives prepared for the night's mission. In a makeshift lab, Dr. Keller, a brilliant geneticist with kind eyes and steady hands, extracted a sample of Evira's genetic material. Fascinating, she murmured, studying the holographic display of Evira's DNA. Your adaptive sequences are unlike anything I've seen. Jack leaned against the wall, watching the procedure. He'd been feeling strange since their arrival, heightened awareness, sharper senses, as if his body was operating at peak efficiency without the usual fatigue of combat readiness. How long until the synthetic marker is ready? He asked. 4 hours minimum, Dr. Keller replied without looking up. Elysian DNA is complex. Commander Curtis entered, carrying tactical gear. Suit up, Harker. We're running simulations in 30. Jack nodded, but as he pushed away from the wall, a wave of dizziness hit him. He stumbled, catching himself on a nearby table. Jack? Evira was immediately at his side, concern in her eyes. I'm fine, he assured her. Just tired. Dr. Keller glanced up from her work, her gaze analytical. When did the symptoms start? What symptoms? Increased sensory perception, muscle enhancement, possibly accelerated reflexes. She set down her instruments. May I? Before Jack could respond, she ran a scanner over him. The device beeped and her eyebrows shot up. Remarkable. Your cellular structure is showing signs of Elysian compatibility markers. She looked between Jack and Evira. Have you two engaged in any form of energy exchange? Evira's blue skin darkened noticeably. Yes. Fascinating, Dr. Keller repeated. It appears the adaptive properties of Elysian genetics have temporarily transferred to you, Mr. Harker. Your human DNA is mimicking certain Elysian traits. Jack blinked. Is that bad? On the contrary, for the mission, it could be extremely advantageous. Enhanced strength, reflexes, possibly even limited empathic abilities. She smiled. The effects are likely temporary, but for now, you've essentially gained superpowers. Curtis, who had been listening silently, stepped forward. Can you control it, Harker? Jack flexed his hand, feeling the new strength coursing through him. I think so. Good. We leave in 5 hours. Be ready. Curtis exited, already barking orders to his team. Alone with Evira, Jack ran a hand through his hair. So our energy exchange gave me superpowers? That's a hell of a morning after effect. Evira's lips curved into a smile. I should have mentioned it was a possibility. Among my people, such transfers usually require multiple exchanges over time. Must be my irresistible human charm, Jack quipped, pulling her closer. Must be, she agreed, her fingers tracing the contours of his face. Your species has always fascinated me. So adaptable, so resilient, even without genetic advantages. We make do, Jack murmured, his lips finding hers briefly. Where's Livy? With the communications officer, Miss Newman. She's taken quite a liking to your technology. As if on cue, laughter echoed from the adjacent room. They found Livy seated at a complex communications array, her small blue fingers dancing over the controls with surprising dexterity. And this one connects to the subspace relay? She was asking. Officer Newman looked astonished. That's exactly right. How did you know that? Livy shrugged. It makes sense. The pattern flows this way. She traced a line across the console that Jack couldn't follow. She's been doing this for 20 minutes, Newman told them. Amazement in her voice. She understands our systems better than some of our recruits. Evira exchanged a significant look with Jack. Livy has always been intuitive with technology. It's part of her genetic adaptability. Jack knelt beside Livy. Having fun, kiddo? She nodded enthusiastically. Human machines are so interesting. They talk to each other in patterns. She's a natural, Newman said. If you ever want a career in Terran communications, young lady, look me up in about 10 years. Levy beamed at the compliment. As they prepared for the mission, Jack found his enhanced abilities easier to control. In the training simulations, he moved with unprecedented speed and precision, his reflexes seemingly anticipating threats before they appeared. It's like I can feel the energy patterns around me, he explained to Evira during a break. Is that how you experience the world? Similar, though we're born with the ability. We don't notice it as distinctly as you must. Their conversation was interrupted when Curtis called the team together for final briefing. The holographic display showed the Nexus Biotech facility, a sprawling complex of laboratories and research centers surrounded by security measures. Our intel indicates the primary database is located here. Curtis pointed to a central structure. Team 1 will access the facility using the synthetic Elysian marker. Team 2 provides extraction support. Jack studied the layout, his enhanced perception noting details he might have missed before. Patrol patterns, security blind spots, optimal entry points. "Sir," he interrupted, "the ventilation system on the east wing shows regular maintenance access, less guarded than the main entrance." Curtis looked surprised. "Good catch, Harker. We'll adjust accordingly." As the briefing continued, an analyst burst into the room. "Commander, we've intercepted communications from the facility. They're moving something, or someone, tonight." "Explain," Curtis demanded. "Multiple containment units being prepared for transport. The communications reference Elysian subjects and Phase 2 trials." A chill ran through the room. Avira's hand found Jack's, squeezing tightly. "They have more Elysians," she whispered, horror in her voice. "Children," the analyst confirmed grimly. "At least 5, based on the containment specifications." Jack felt Avira trembling beside him. The thought of children, like Levy, being experimented on made his blood boil. "This changes the mission parameters," Curtis said, his voice hard. "We now have a rescue operation alongside intelligence gathering." "I'm going," Avira stated firmly. "Absolutely not," Curtis countered. "You're too valuable." "Those are my people," she interrupted. "My genetic signature will work better than any synthetic. And if there are children—" Her eyes met Jack's. "I have to go." Jack knew that look. The same determination he'd seen when she agreed to help bring down Nexus Biotech. There would be no changing her mind. She comes with my team," he told Curtis. "I'll keep her safe." The commander studied them both, then nodded curtly. "Your responsibility, Harker." As they geared up for the mission, Jack found Avira in the armory, being fitted with a tactical suit by one of the female operatives. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly. "No," she admitted. "But I couldn't live with myself if I stayed behind." Jack understood completely. In the short time since he'd found a lost girl in the rain, his life had transformed entirely. What had begun as a simple act of kindness had evolved into something profound, a connection that transcended species, a cause worth fighting for, and perhaps, most surprisingly, a family he never expected to find. "We'll get those kids out," he promised. "And we'll end this. Together." Avira's eyes met his, filled with a mixture of fear and resolve. Together. As the team made final preparations, Jack caught sight of Levy saying goodbye to her mother, brave despite her obvious worry. The child who had changed his life with a simple plea for help now stood at the center of a mission that could alter the fate of her entire species. The rain had stopped over Nexus Prime, but storm clouds still loomed on the horizon as night fell. Within hours, they would infiltrate one of the most secure facilities on the planet, armed with enhanced abilities, determination, and the unshakable human drive to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The Nexus Biotech facility loomed against the night sky, its sleek architecture belying the darkness within. Jack, Avira, and the Terran Special Operations team approached through the maintenance tunnels, their movements silent and precise. "Security systems ahead," whispered Lieutenant Vega, the team's tech specialist. "Genetic scanner at the first checkpoint." Jack nodded to Avira, who stepped forward. She placed her palm against the scanner, her blue skin luminescent in the dim light. The panel pulsed, analyzing her Elysian DNA, then flashed green. "We're in," Jack said into his comm unit. "Proceeding to objective." They moved through the facility like shadows, Jack's enhanced senses alerting him to guard patrols before they appeared. He could feel energy signatures, life forms moving through the complex, in a way that was both alien and exhilarating. "The children are being held 2 levels down," Avira whispered, her innate connection to her people guiding her. "I can sense them." Jack split the team. "Vega Newman, secure the data core. Avira and I will retrieve the children. Rendezvous at extraction point in 30 minutes. As the others peeled away, Jack and Avira descended to the lower levels. The sterile corridors gave way to a research wing where the lighting dimmed to a sickly blue glow. "Jack," Evira gasped, stopping abruptly. "Something's wrong. I sense more than just children." Before he could respond, an alarm blared. Red emergency lights pulsed along the corridor. "They've detected the intrusion," Jack said, drawing his weapon. "We need to move fast." They sprinted down the hallway, following Evira's instincts until they reached a heavily secured door. Jack placed a breaching charge while Evira stood guard. 3, 2, 1. The door blew inward with a controlled blast. Inside, they found a nightmare. 5 Elysian children, their blue skin pale from captivity, were contained in transparent medical pods. But beyond them stood a row of larger chambers, containing what appeared to be adult Elysians. Except their bodies were grotesquely altered, their limbs elongated and their skin mottled with patches of other species characteristics. "They've weaponized them," Evira whispered in horror. "Forced genetic adaptation." Jack moved to the control panel, his enhanced perception allowing him to quickly decipher the alien technology. "I can release the children, but these others, I don't know if they're still—" "They're alive," Evira confirmed, tears in her eyes, "but their minds are gone. They've been transformed into biological weapons." A door at the far end of the lab hissed open. A tall, spindly figure entered, a Vexian, one of the galaxy's most brilliant and immoral scientific minds. His elongated head housed an oversized brain, and his 6-fingered hands moved with unsettling precision. "Fascinating," the Vexian said, his voice eerily melodic. "A human and an Elysian working together. How unexpected." "Director Maldus," Evira spat the name like a curse. "You know me." "I'm flattered." The Vexian glided closer. "And you've brought us a human with Elysian markers." How generous. Jack felt the creature's gaze penetrating him, analyzing the changes in his biology. "We're taking the children," he stated firmly, "and shutting down your operation." Maldus laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Your species' confidence is always amusing. Do you realize what we've accomplished here? The perfect biological weapon, adaptable to any environment, any target species. The Galactic Concord will pay trillions for this technology." "You violated every ethical law in the galaxy," Evira countered. "Ethics are for the weak. Evolution demands sacrifice." Maldus pressed a control on his wrist device. The chambers containing the altered Elysians began to open. "Let me demonstrate the effectiveness of our creations." Jack reacted instantly, firing at the control panel. Sparks erupted as the system shorted out, freezing the chambers mid-cycle. "Get the children!" he shouted to Evira as he dove for cover. Maldus hissed in anger, producing a weapon of his own, a neural disruptor that could paralyze with a single shot. Jack rolled, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to evade the beam by millimeters. Evira worked frantically at the children's containment pods, releasing them one by one. The young Elysians were weak but conscious, their frightened eyes darting between their rescuer and the ongoing battle. "Go with her!" Jack ordered the oldest child, a boy who looked about Livy's age. "Stay together." As Evira led the children toward the exit, Maldus fired again, the beam grazing Jack's shoulder. Pain exploded through his nervous system, but the Elysian enhancements in his body fought back, neutralizing the weapon's effect faster than a normal human could. "Impossible!" Maldus gasped. "Your adaptation rate—" Jack didn't let him finish. He launched himself at the Vexian, his enhanced strength sending them both crashing into a bank of equipment. Warning lights flashed as chemicals spilled across the floor. "Vega, report!" Jack shouted into his comm as he grappled with Maldus. "Data secured," came the response, "but we've got company. Lots of it. Get to extraction. We're right behind you." Jack pinned Maldus against a wall, the Vexian's fragile body no match for his strength. "It's over." "You think stopping me changes anything?" Maldus wheezed. "There are others." "The research will continue." "Not with the evidence we've collected." Jack secured the alien's hands. "The Terran Protectorate will make sure of that." A tremor ran through the facility, followed by the distinctive sound of explosions. "Jack!" Evira called from the doorway. "The bioweapons! They're destabilizing!" He looked back at the partially open chambers. The altered Elysians were convulsing, their bodies breaking down as the forced adaptations failed. The whole lab's going critical, he realized. We need to move. Now! Dragging Maldus with him, Jack joined Avira and the children. They raced through the corridors as alarms blared and personnel evacuated. Jack's enhanced senses guided them through the chaos, avoiding security forces and finding the clearest path to the extraction point. They emerged onto a landing pad where a Terran shuttle waited, engines hot. Commander Curtis stood at the ramp, covering their approach with a heavy blaster. "Move it, Harker!" he shouted over the din. As they sprinted for the shuttle, a squad of Dravian mercenaries burst onto the pad. Energy bolts sizzled through the air around them. "Get them aboard!" Jack pushed Avira and the children toward Curtis, then turned to face the threat. Time seemed to slow as his enhanced perception processed the battlefield. He could see the trajectory of each energy bolt, the position of each mercenary, the optimal path through the chaos. With fluid grace, he moved between the bolts, returning fire with deadly accuracy. The Dravians fell one by one, their superior numbers meaningless against Jack's enhanced abilities and combat experience. Behind him, the facility began to collapse as the bioweapon containment systems failed completely. "Harker! Last call!" Curtis bellowed from the shuttle ramp. Jack turned and sprinted for the craft, leaping aboard as it lifted off. The hatch sealed behind him as the Nexus biotech facility erupted in blue flame. The illegal research destroyed in a purifying blaze. Inside the shuttle, Avira threw her arms around him. "You did it!" she whispered against his neck. "We did it," he corrected, holding her tight. The rescued children huddled together, watching the humans with wide, wondering eyes. One small girl, no more than 5 years old, approached Jack hesitantly. "Are you a guardian?" she asked in a tiny voice. Jack knelt to her level. "Today I was. Will you be our guardian tomorrow too?" The innocent question struck him deeply. He glanced at Avira, seeing the same thought reflected in her eyes. "If you'll have me," he answered softly. 3 months later, Jack stood on the balcony of a coastal home on Elysium, watching the double sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and purple. Behind him, laughter echoed from the house, Livy playing with the rescued children, all now recovering under the care of Elysian healers and human doctors working together. Avira joined him at the railing, her hand finding his. "Penny for your thoughts?" "Just thinking about how one small decision can change everything," he replied. "If I hadn't stopped that day in the rain." "The universe has a way of bringing people together who are meant to find each other," she said, leaning against him. The aftermath of the Nexus biotech operation had been swift and far-reaching. The evidence they'd gathered exposed a network of illegal genetic research spanning multiple corporations. The Terran Protectorate had established new protections for Elysians, and Jack had been offered a position overseeing the joint Human-Elysian security force. More importantly, he and Avira had built something neither had expected, a family. Their connection had deepened beyond the initial attraction, beyond even the genetic bond they shared. They had found in each other a partner, a complement, a home. "Livy asked me today if you were going to be her father," Avira said, a smile playing at her lips. Jack turned to face her. "What did you tell her?" "That it was up to you." Her eyes held his, filled with hope and love. "So what do you say, Jack Harker? Ready to make this arrangement permanent?" In answer, he pulled her close, his lips finding hers in a kiss that promised forever. As the last rays of sunlight gilded their entwined figures, Jack reflected that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the simplest acts of kindness, like stopping to help a lost child in the rain. His life would indeed never be the same, and he wouldn't have it any other way.